It was a bright and calm afternoon in Jamaica, the sun casting a warm glow over the island. Usain Bolt, the world-renowned sprinter, sat in his living room, scrolling through his phone. His eyes paused on a news article that caught his attention. Burkina Faso's young president, Ibrahim Traoré, had been making waves internationally for his leadership during a time of turmoil in his country. The young president was faced with unimaginable challenges, yet he had shown an incredible amount of strength, resilience, and hope. Usain couldn't help but be moved by the story. Usain was no stranger to pressure. For years, he had been the fastest man on earth, living his life in the spotlight, carrying the weight of his country's pride and the world's expectations on his shoulders. He had broken world records, sprinted through the world's most famous tracks, and inspired millions with his athleticism and drive. But as he read about President Traoré's efforts to navigate the complex political landscape of Burkina Faso, Usain was reminded of something deeper, something more profound than winning races. He was reminded of the power of leadership, the importance of standing strong in times of uncertainty, and the need to give hope to those who felt they had none. As Usain read on, he found himself deeply empathizing with the struggles faced by President Traoré. The turmoil in Burkina Faso, the political unrest, and the challenges of unifying a nation that had been torn apart by violence and conflict were not easy burdens to bear. Usain could feel the weight of it, even from the other side of the world. He understood what it meant to be under constant pressure and scrutiny, and he could only imagine the strength it took for President Traoré to keep moving forward, making decisions that would affect the lives of millions. The idea of sending a message to the president started as a fleeting thought. But the more Usain thought about it, the more he realized how much he admired the president's courage and determination. In a world filled with so much division and fear, Traoré's leadership was a beacon of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest times, there was always room for change, for progress, and for unity. Usain sat back in his chair, staring out the window, reflecting on his own experiences. He had always believed that leadership came from within. The greatest leaders weren't necessarily the ones who held power, but the ones who inspired others to believe in themselves, to keep pushing forward, even when things seemed impossible. Usain had experienced that himself. From his humble beginnings in rural Jamaica to becoming the fastest man on earth, he had faced countless obstacles. He had encountered doubts from others, and even moments when he doubted himself. But it was his unwavering belief in his ability to achieve greatness that had pushed him through. President Traoré's leadership had reminded Usain of this inner strength, the same strength he had tapped into every time he stepped onto the track. Usain had been inspired by many people in his life, but what struck him about President Traoré was the way he led with empathy, with a genuine desire to improve the lives of the people he served. It wasn't about power or status, it was about making a difference. As Usain's thoughts began to take shape, he knew he had to act. This wasn't about just sending a simple message, it was about offering support, about acknowledging the president's struggles, and about encouraging him to continue on the difficult path he had chosen. Usain knew that encouragement could change lives. It could lift people from the darkest moments and remind them why they fought so hard in the first place. Taking out his phone, Usain began typing. He didn't need to follow any script or formalities. This was a message from the heart, and it had to come across that way. His words needed to be raw, sincere, and real. His message would carry the weight of his own experiences, of all he had learned about perseverance, leadership, and the power of believing in yourself. Dear President Ibrahim Traoré, I hope this message finds you in good health, despite the immense challenges you are facing. My name is Usain Bolt, and though I have never had the honor of meeting you in person, I have been following your leadership closely, and I wanted to take a moment to tell you that your courage and resilience have deeply inspired me. As an athlete, I know what it means to carry the weight of expectations, to be under constant pressure. But I also know what it means to rise above, to keep pushing even when everything around you seems difficult. Watching you lead Burkina Faso through such difficult times, I see the same qualities that I strive to embody in my own life, the belief that no matter how hard the journey is, you have to keep moving forward. Your strength, your determination, and your commitment to your people are qualities that inspire not just the people of Burkina Faso, but all of us. You are a symbol of what true leadership is about. It's not about power or titles, it's about doing what is right, even when it's hard. I know that the road ahead is not easy. You face so many challenges, and there will be moments when doubt creeps in, when the weight of your responsibility feels too heavy to bear. But please remember this, you are not alone. The world is watching, and the world is rooting for you. You are leading with strength, and that strength is something that will carry you through, no matter how tough the journey gets. Keep fighting, keep believing, and keep leading with the heart that you have shown to the people of Burkina Faso. Your courage gives hope, and that hope is what will build a better future for your country and for the world. With all my respect and support. Usain Bolt. As Usain hit send, he leaned back in his chair and let out a deep breath. There was something about sending that message that felt powerful, not just for President Traore, but for himself as well. It was a reminder that leadership was about more than just what you did in the spotlight. It was about the quiet moments, the personal battles, and the way you carried yourself even when no one was watching. For Usain, the message was more than just encouragement, it was a call for unity, for understanding, and for the belief that no matter the challenges we face, we can overcome them. His message to President Traore was simple, but it was heartfelt. It was a message from one leader to another, one who understood the weight of responsibility and the importance of staying true to one's purpose. As the night drew on, Usain felt a sense of peace. He knew that the road ahead would not be easy for President Traore, but he also knew that with the support of people around the world, and with the strength of his own leadership, the president would continue to make strides toward a better future for Burkina Faso. As Usain Bolt's phone buzzed, signaling that the message to President Ibrahim Traoré had been successfully sent, a deep sense of satisfaction washed over him. It was the kind of quiet peace that only comes from knowing you've done something meaningful, something that transcended your own fame. Usain stared at his phone screen for a moment, letting the moment linger before setting the phone down on the wooden coffee table in front of him. The evening sunlight still filtered through the windows, casting a soft glow across the room. For a moment, he allowed his mind to wander. He thought about his own life and the way the world had watched him since the day he first raced onto the track. He had been fortunate, yes. Blessed with a talent that propelled him into the global spotlight. But what the world didn't see were the countless hours of training, the moments of self-doubt, and the sacrifices made behind the scenes. He had lived through struggles of his own, moments when it seemed as if all his hard work might never pay off. And yet, through it all, Usain had held on to one thing, the belief that no matter how tough things got, it was always worth fighting for. This belief had pushed him to run faster, to jump higher, and to break records that many thought were impossible to break. But today, as he reflected on President Traoré's journey, Usain realized that it wasn't just his athletic achievements that mattered, it was the impact he could have beyond the track. He had been blessed with the power to inspire, to be a symbol of resilience and strength. And today, that same power was being channeled in a new way. Towards a man who, though from a very different world, was fighting his own battles of leadership, resilience, and national recovery. As Usain relaxed on the couch, he thought more deeply about the message he had sent. It wasn't just an encouragement, it was an acknowledgement of the weight of leadership. The world often praised leaders for their victories, for their ability to navigate complex situations, and for their strength in times of crisis. But what people didn't always see was the burden that came with it. It was easy to admire a leader from a distance, but the true test came when that leader was alone, in the quiet moments, having to make decisions that would affect the lives of millions. Usain understood that feeling well. He had spent years in the spotlight, but he also knew that fame came with its own kind of isolation. People expected you to be invincible, but inside, you were only human, vulnerable, struggling, and searching for answers just like everyone else. He could only imagine the kind of pressure Ibrahim Traoré was under, having to lead a nation through political instability, security challenges, and economic hardship. Despite the challenges, President Traoré had shown remarkable poise and determination. His ability to navigate these difficult times was something that Usain couldn't ignore. It wasn't about making perfect decisions, it was about doing the best you could with the cards you were dealt. In a way, Usain felt connected to the president. Though their lives were worlds apart, they both understood what it meant to rise above doubt and criticism, to lead with purpose, and to keep pushing forward even when the future seemed uncertain. Usain knew that the road ahead would be difficult for President Traoré. The stakes were high, and the challenges were immense. But Usain also knew that the president's strength wasn't just in his ability to make tough decisions. It was in his unwavering commitment to his people, his determination to create a better future for the next generation, and his belief that no matter how hard the fight, it was worth it. Later that evening, Usain shared a quiet dinner with his close friends and family. They talked about various topics, from his latest business ventures to the ongoing charity work he was involved in. But as the conversation flowed, Usain couldn't help but circle back to the message he had sent earlier. He didn't often share personal moments like this, but tonight felt different. He spoke to his family about President Traoré, explaining how he had been inspired by the young president's leadership. "It's one thing to break a record," Usain said thoughtfully, "but it's something entirely different to lead a nation through a crisis. I've been on the track, feeling the weight of expectations on my shoulders. But that's nothing compared to the responsibility Ibrahim Traoré carries every single day." His family nodded, understanding the weight of his words. They had all seen Usain struggle, overcome setbacks, and push through injuries, but this was a different kind of challenge. They knew how much he admired the president for taking on such a heavy burden at such a young age. "What do you think he needs right now?" his sister asked. Usain paused, thinking for a moment. "He needs encouragement, but not just any encouragement. He needs to know that the world is watching and that people are rooting for him. It's easy to think you're alone when you're leading in such uncertain times. But when you know others are supporting you, it makes the fight a little easier. So, I sent him a message. Just a simple one, really. I told him that his strength inspires me and that I stand with him. It's important for him to know that." His friends were quiet, clearly moved by the depth of Usain's thoughts. They knew him as the fast runner, the record breaker, but seeing this side of him, the side that understood leadership and the importance of encouragement, was something new. As the days passed, Usain couldn't help but check the news regularly for updates on Burkina Faso. He wasn't expecting an immediate reply from President Traoré, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted within him after sending that message. He had always been driven by the desire to be the best in his field, but now he realized that being the best wasn't always about winning. It was about inspiring others to keep going, no matter the circumstances. Weeks later, Usain received an email that brought a sense of fulfillment. It was from an organization based in Burkina Faso, expressing their gratitude for the message. They shared with him that President Traoré had received his words and had been deeply moved. "Your message was a reminder that leadership is not only about strength but also about the support we receive from others," the email read. "It has lifted the spirits of many who feel the weight of these trying times." That was all Usain needed to hear. He understood the ripple effect of encouragement. Just as his message had inspired President Traoré, he knew that Traoré's leadership would continue to inspire countless others in Burkina Faso and beyond. The cycle of encouragement, support, and strength was what kept nations going, what kept people fighting for a better tomorrow. As Usain continued his journey of giving back to the community, whether through his charity work or his investments in youth sports, he often reflected on the message he had sent to President Ibrahim Traoré. It wasn't just about one moment in time, it was about the power of standing together, even when it feels like the odds are against you. In this world, we all need encouragement. We all need the strength to keep pushing forward, even when the path ahead seems daunting. Usain knew that the road to success, whether in sports, leadership, or life, was never straight. It was filled with obstacles, challenges, and setbacks. But as long as you had the strength to keep going, the belief that better days were ahead, and the support of those around you, there was always hope. And for President Traoré, and for the people of Burkina Faso, that hope was something they could hold on to, knowing that the world was watching and rooting for them. Absolutely. Let's continue expanding on the story, diving deeper into Usain Bolt's thoughts, his relationship with leadership, and how his message resonates with President Ibrahim Traoré. We'll also add more context to their connection and the lasting impact of the encouragement. This will be the continuation of the narrative, keeping it emotional and engaging. Usain had always been someone who thrived on the track. The roar of the crowd, the rush of the wind in his face, the beat of his own heart, all of it came together in those moments of competition. But now, as he sat in his living room in Jamaica, he realized that there was a different kind of race taking place, one that required a different type of endurance of the heart. President Ibrahim Traoré's leadership was testing him in ways Usain had never imagined. It wasn't about speed or physical strength anymore. It was about resilience, about finding a way to lead through turmoil, uncertainty, and deep-rooted challenges. Usain thought about the way President Traoré had stepped into his role, young, full of hope but burdened with the weight of a nation's future on his shoulders. What kind of courage did that take? Usain knew that kind of courage well, though it had manifested in a very different form. He thought of the countless times he had had to dig deep, to push beyond his limits, to prove that he could be the fastest and the best. Now, he saw that same determination in President Traoré, but the stakes were far higher. It was strange, Usain thought. He had spent years running faster than anyone in history, and yet here he was, sitting still, letting his words do the running for him. His message had been a small gesture, one that might not change the world in a day, but it had been meaningful in its own way. It was a reminder that leadership wasn't always about standing alone at the front. Sometimes, it was about lifting others up, letting them know that their struggle wasn't unnoticed, that their fight wasn't theirs alone. As he thought about his message to President Traoré, Usain's heart swelled with a new sense of purpose. He wasn't just looking at the world from a distance anymore. He was becoming more involved in the greater struggle for progress. His life had always been about breaking records, but now he realized that his influence went beyond athletics. His ability to inspire, to offer hope and encouragement, had the potential to spark change. It wasn't just about the trophies and the medals. It was about the connections, the conversations, and the shared determination to build something better, something stronger. A few weeks after sending his message, Usain heard from an old friend who worked with international development organizations. The friend had heard of his message to President Traoré and was genuinely moved by it. "You might not realize it," the friend told him, "but your message has already started a conversation. People in Burkina Faso are talking about it, and it's bringing hope to so many who felt isolated, who thought no one saw their struggle." Usain was taken aback. He hadn't expected that. To him, it had just been a message of support, something simple, something human. But to others, it was a spark. People were beginning to see that leaders, no matter how far removed from their own lives, could still care deeply and stand in solidarity. The message from one person, one leader, could have far-reaching effects. It could inspire others to believe in themselves, to push through adversity, and to believe in the possibility of change. It was this ripple effect that made Usain's heart race, not the adrenaline of a race but the deeper pulse of humanity, the feeling of connection that extended beyond borders and beyond differences. His words had not just impacted President Traoré but had created an atmosphere where others felt empowered to stand up and be heard. President Traoré's leadership, though praised internationally, was far from easy. Burkina Faso had long struggled with political instability, insurgencies, and economic challenges. But through it all, President Traoré had remained steadfast. Despite the daily challenges, his vision for Burkina Faso remained clear, a country where its people could live in peace, where education would be accessible to all, and where the youth could thrive and shape their own future.